paid with taxpayer money. That's what this bill is about. It's simple, it's clean, and by the way, we made sure through the amendment that if in fact they are to be found innocent, which does happen, they would receive back pay because we are all presumed innocent until we're proven guilty. So that's been dealt with in this bill, but we would make sure that nobody could be paid because they thought they were above the law. With that, we will turn it over to Representative Piwarczyk for eligibility verification.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Jim Pivovarczyk. I represent the 98th Assembly District. Today I'm very honored to be able to speak on one of my bills. It's called Assembly Bill 281. It would require the state of Wisconsin, as well as contractors with contracts totaling $50,000 or more, to use the federal E-Verify program to confirm the employment eligibility of their employees. E-Verify is a program administered by the U.S. Department of Homeland Security in partnership with the Social Security Administration. It serves as a critical tool to ensure that individuals hired for employment in the United States are legally authorized to work. Employers enter information from the I-9 form, and the system checks this data against federal databases to verify a person's employment eligibility. By requiring the use of E-Verify for state agencies and significant state contractors, AB 281 helps align Wisconsin with several other states, such as Minnesota, Indiana, and Pennsylvania, that have already taken the step to enhance workforce integrity. This is a common sense measure that promotes transparency and accountability in public contracting and state employment. In September, a Des Moines, Iowa public school superintendent with prior weapons charges was arrested for being in the United States illegally and allegedly making false statements about his citizenship while possessing a firearm. There was a final order of removal and he had no work authorization. The school district did not use E-Verify. This bill would help ensure this does not happen to state employees here in Wisconsin. Importantly, the E-Verify program is not just about enforcing immigration law, it also is about reducing identity theft and fraud in the workplace. When undocumented workers use stolen or falsified identities to gain employment, it can have serious consequences for legal residents, including the loss of benefits, tax complications, and long-term harm to credit and employment records. E-Verify helps reduce these risks by flagging discrepancies early in the hiring process. This legislation reinforces Wisconsin's commitment to following both state and federal employment laws. It protects legal workers, ensures fair competition among contractors, and upholds the rule of law. It also sends a clear message that taxpayer dollars should not be used to subsidize employment practices that may violate federal law. AB 281 is a measured, reasonable, and necessary step forward for Wisconsin. I respectfully urge my colleagues to support this legislation. Thank you.
Well, thank you. I'm going to be speaking on AJR 10, which is the constitutional amendment that prevents the government from closing a place of worship during a public health emergency. So our founders promised the people of faith that the government would never take our right to assemble away from them. Our state constitution already says in Article 1, Section 18, the right of every person to worship Almighty God according to the dictates of their conscience shall never be infringed. Now, Governor Evers' Safer at Home order required places of worship gathering no more than 10 people at a time, no matter how big the church structure was. What part of never infringe the right of every person to worship Almighty God according to the dictates of their conscience did Governor Evers not understand? I don't know. I don't get it. But it seems like he thought our response to COVID was more important than following the Constitution. And if that was true, though, you would think that Governor Evers would have been more consistent with that principle. He would apply that principle in every situation. But he didn't. During the Safer at Home order, you could congregate at a liquor store, but you couldn't congregate at the First Congressional Church in Appleton. You could assemble at a casino, but you couldn't assemble at the Park Lawn Assembly of God in Milwaukee. You could commune at a gas station, but you couldn't commune at Crossroads Community Church in Sheboygan. Governor Evers was wrong to limit our churches to 10. It appears he didn't find them a priority. We disagree with that. If passed in November, we're going to add to Article 1, Section 18. It's going to add the addition, nor shall the state or a political subdivision of the state order the closure of or forbid gatherings in places of worship in response to a state of emergency at the national, state, or local level, including an emergency related to public health. I don't know how we can be any more clear than that. And the public is already in favor of this. Wisconsin Family Action paid for a poll of 500 likely general election voters. What they found was that 55% said they'd vote for it, 31% said they wouldn't vote for it. 50% of liberals said they'd vote for it. 71% of conservatives were for it. Further, 62% of non-white voters would vote for this as well. This is popular, and it's going to pass referendum and become law this November. Now I'd like to go to the great Dave Murphy, who's going to tell you about AJR 102 regarding an amendment to prevent government discrimination.
Thank you. You bet. Wow, quite an introduction. I am Dave Murphy. Good afternoon. I represent the 56th Assembly District. I'm here today to talk to you about Assembly Joint Resolution 102. Resolution 102 is coming up for its second consideration, so when it's passed in this session of the legislature, it will be on the November 2026 ballot. I call this constitutional amendment the Equality Amendment because what it does is it restores merit, fairness, and equality to government practices in Wisconsin, all the way from the state capitol, all the way down to our school boards and everything in between. So it includes hiring, it includes scholarships, it includes contracting in the state of Wisconsin. And Republicans feel really strongly about merit and fairness and equality, but in polling that we've seen, both Democratic and Republican voters, by a large margin, support this legislation. So I'm really happy to have my colleagues join me today in supporting the Equity Amendment. And with that, I think I'm the last one, no? Representative Bourne.
Thank you.
Sorry about that.
It's all right. It's all right. It was an addition, but in light of the governor's bloated spending plan that he put out this morning and his remarks on the budget surplus, I felt it was important to clarify some things on where our state budget's at. And when the governor announced this morning in his plan that we have a $4 billion surplus, it made me wonder if he forgot that he signed a state budget in July. Because the reality is that we did have a surplus at the end of the last fiscal year. We made a lot of important investments in that bipartisan budget that the Republican legislature passed and the governor signed. You know, important things like the largest ever increase in the history of the program for special education here in Wisconsin. Things like eliminating the sales tax on electricity to help families meet their budgets in these rising costs that we're seeing in these inflationary times. So a lot of important investments, but a lot of that surplus was spent in those important investments and tax reforms and things like that. So our more realistic number is about $900 million in current surplus. And of course it is January and an even numbered year, so we are expecting new estimates soon, probably next week, that may adjust those numbers. But certainly the Republican legislative leadership will, with today's agenda and with the agendas for the rest of this session, we'll spend within our means in the real budget that is currently $900 million and may adjust in the coming weeks, and we'll adjust our priorities to continue to find ways to help families and folks here in Wisconsin with struggling costs and the inflationary times. So with that, we can take questions on any of the agenda today.
Is there any chance for compromise on property taxes specifically, because the governor's plan is pretty clearly wants to buy down some of these he's not gonna sign that, it sounds like you're not gonna vote to pass his plan. Is there room here in the next couple of months to get together and work out some sort of compromise specific to property taxes?
Sure, well, we of course were not briefed on the governor's plan. We haven't seen anything other than press reports. So what I read, it seems like money is gonna go into the school levy credit. So that is really spending on schools. It is gonna go into the homestead tax credit, which is really only aimed at a small number of homeowners in Wisconsin. And the third is a veterans property tax credit, which of course is aimed only at folks who have served in our military. So it's not a broad-based property tax relief. We don't even know what the price tag really is. All of those ideas were ones that we rejected in the budget last year in favor of making this historic investment in special ed. So for anybody who went to the budget process, you know that at every single hearing the Joint Finance Committee had, person after person, superintendents, teachers, educators, advocates stood up and said, we want to have an investment in special ed. That is our priority. We met that priority at the same level that Governor Evers agreed to 6 months ago. So we did that investment in schools already, even though they are trying to obfuscate and make it seem like we didn't make an investment. That's not true. So yes, are we open to finding an answer on property taxes? We've been saying that for months, as we knew this 400-year increase was going to actually take effect. One of the things that has to happen is we need Governor Evers to admit he made a mistake. I mean, he has been proudly touting the property tax increases with his 400-year veto and has been unabashed in taking the responsibility for it until today, where he's trying to push it off onto somebody else. 400-year veto is a big part of the problem. It's got to be fixed for any solution. So hopefully he would work with us to say, assuming we do property tax relief, we can't just keep putting more water into a bucket full of holes. We need to fill the holes and then make sure that the bucket has the ability to deliver the relief. So my hope is we can find some kind of a bipartisan consensus, but it's not going to be just putting more money in without the reforms that are necessary.
Speaker Boggs, this is slightly off agenda, but do you have any comment on UW Health and Children's Wisconsin banning trans care or gender affirming care for trans youth?
Well, frankly, that should have happened a long time ago. If you look at where the Assembly and the Senate has been, we realize the fact that children should not be mutilated in the way that they have been. It's not gender affirming care, it's really gender mutilation. In other parts of the world, we've now seen that they have outlawed the practice, saying that it is inhumane and cruel. I am glad that in Wisconsin we now are seeing a reduction. It's my understanding, and I don't have confirmation yet, that every facility in the state is following the same dictates. I'm happy that Children's made that decision to do it, but I hope if there are any other in Wisconsin, they would also follow suit.
So is your line in the sand on property taxes, the governor has to agree to get rid of the 400-year veto before you'll negotiate?
Well, it has to be part of the discussion. I mean, if all we're going to do is keep putting, hundreds of millions of dollars into the problem that he created, it seems to me like the first thing you should do is agree that there is a problem that needs to be fixed, and then we address how do we take care of the one that's already been created. So hopefully it's part of a broader discussion. I don't know if you want to say anything else, but it seems like that's part of the answer.
Cool, thanks, guys. Sorry,
We got to go to the, yeah, thank you.
Thank you.